Hey there, this is Maria from English Without Fear. Today I want to talk to all of you teachers about something that is personal. It's how I feel as a teacher myself. And the truth is, I have always felt pretty incompetent as a language teacher. Maybe you don't feel that way, but let me explain what I mean and what I have concluded about that. In March of this year, 2019, I left my French classroom after 27 years of consecutive teaching French to middle schoolers and high schoolers. And I never felt competent as a teacher, or rarely, should I say. When I took all the ed classes to become a teacher, my last semester I student taught for a French teacher in a high school. She had 5 different levels, French 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and she had been teaching for many years. She was laid back, relaxed, unstressed, and I thought, that's the way good teachers are, and one day maybe I'll be like her. Well, to tell you the truth, it never happened. I've worked hard at being a French teacher. I struggled at it. I always felt like I was coming from behind. For years, I went to conferences about how to teach with comprehensible input. At first, they were the TPRS conferences. They were great. I learned a lot. I changed my method, obviously, from being a textbook teacher to being a teacher that used comprehensible input and didn't focus on grammar or spelling or rules. So that was really good. But what was not good about the conferences was that I would see all these presenters and compare myself to them, and everybody had a different version of what works best, what their creative method was. And I would try this and I would try that. I would read their blog posts. I would follow what they did, and I felt overwhelmed. It was hard. Finally, one day, maybe about 5 or 6 years ago, I just unsubscribed from everybody. It didn't make me feel more competent, but at least it wasn't right in front of my face what other people are doing. And what I learned was that there are many ways to use comprehensible input, and each of us is different. And what is your shtick, what works for you, might be a function of your personality, of the kids you teach, or students. I don't know, but that doesn't mean that I have to do exactly like you do. The other thing I learned was that when I bombed a class, I learned that out of that failure where I just felt awful about myself, out of that failure usually came a new idea, not from somebody else, but from within me. And I learned to pray to God and ask Him to give me creative ideas from me, from within me, that would fit me and would fit the situation. And He did, always. So that was reassuring. I learned not to fear bombing, failing. But more recently, and I would say it's since I've had grandchildren and seen how they pick up their language from their moms and dads and brothers and sisters, etc., watching them, and then my own experience of acquiring Spanish. As of the end of July 2019, I now have 467 hours of input. I now spend about an hour and a half a day either listening to podcasts, watching YouTube videos, not grammar, and reading. And I am acquiring Spanish just by listening and by reading. And that's what I want to do. And what I'm realizing is that it doesn't matter. There's no one right way. So my 3 guidelines for me, and I hope these will help you and maybe take off some of the pressure as you read and hear about all these creative ideas other people are doing and feel like, oh, there's one right way, or I got to try this, or I got to try that. Here are the 3 guidelines. 1, whatever you do, it needs to be slow and comprehensible. Your students need to understand. Number 2, it needs to be interesting to them. And that's going to vary on their age and their experiences and what kind of people they are. If you've got kindergartners like my friend Julia, God bless her, what's interesting to a 5-year-old is very different from what's interesting to a 43-year-old or a 14-year-old. So you need to tailor your content to your students. So it has to be comprehensible, slow, it has to be interesting, compelling, and it has to be repetitive, meaning not the same thing in the same way over and over, but common language. And if you just think about how kids pick up their own language, they pick it up. Parents don't plan out a language acquisition curriculum. They just do life. So do life with your learners, whatever your setting is. Relax, relax. There's no one right way. If you feel like today bringing in some show and tell, what you did over the weekend, or bringing in some food, or bringing in a picture, or an interesting object, or I don't know, anything. Be as creative or uncreative as you want to be, but be comprehensible, relate to your students, be slow and repetitive, and then just relax. Over time, your students will pick up the language. But remember, it's a lot of time, hours, 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 hours. I'm only at 467 hours. My grandchildren, by the time they turn 4, they've had 14,000 plus hours of input, whether cartoons or narration from the grocery store. And speaking of cartoons, there are plenty of testimonies of adults who have picked up another language and succeeded in passing stringent tests through watching cartoons. And then there's that one story of the guy who worked in a Jewish restaurant who did not speak Hebrew. He was in America. He was a native Spanish speaker. And just by being interested in his coworkers in the kitchen, he picked up Hebrew. He was just interested in the people. He didn't try to pick up Hebrew. So you see, it's not rocket science. Well, let me know. What are your ideas? Do you feel competent as a teacher? I mean, we're talking about being honest. I never felt competent as a parent, so I stopped reading parenting books. Maybe it's just me, but there you have it. So that's it for today and my heart-to-heart with you as a fellow teacher. Be gentle with yourself and have a good time teaching your learners. Talk to you next time.
Thanks for watching. For questions or comments, here's my email